I am of two minds when it comes to Pete Hegseth, because on one hand, if we're going to have destruction of our government functioning or, sort of slash and burn tactics, I think I would prefer it to happen with our military, because we seem to have so much redundancy, waste, and unnecessary expenditures and global size. I don't know if we're up to 1,000 bases around the world now. It seems out of fashion to count how many we have. And despite the fact that we have one of the most peace-loving presidents maybe in the history of the country, we have been now bombing the Houthis in Yemen for close to 45 days. Yeah. I think it may be even a little bit more.
On Israel's behalf, essentially, because the Houthis in Yemen have been engaging in a shipping blockade off of their own shores, which is kind of a tactic that's been used throughout time immemorial by nations. But the United States calls that terrorism.
Because they were observing the ceasefire, too, just to add on to what you're saying, until Israel broke the ceasefire.
Yes, and they've been engaging in the blockade to put pressure on Israel and the United States to stop funding this genocide of the Palestinians.
And let's be clear, U.S. shipping through in that lane is, I think, in single digits percentage-wise. If not, then just slightly more. And for a country that claims to want to impose tariffs and force some type of parity between us and the rest of the world, why would we be there protecting the shipping lanes for other countries?
J.D. Vance said that in the leaked chat, which was saying that this might be incongruent with our more isolationist messaging on Europe, because they were claiming it was to help the Europeans.
It's funny you bring up group chat, because we know that because Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, set up a group chat on Signal, which is an app that you can't install on government devices. And
well, you can, but you can't do privileged communications on that. You can't do classified communications on it.
Well, I mean, plans to attack a country, specific plans when planes and whatnot are taking off, why would that be classified?
Right.
That was the chat where they accidentally added a reporter. Well, it turns out that Pete Hegseth had another Signal chat on his own personal phone again. And this one included all the people, if you're Defense Department secretary, that you need to bounce off to, the details of an imminent attack about 2 hours out, 3 hours out. Various aides, his private attorney, who recently got recommissioned to work as, I guess, a JAG in the Navy, so that he could be close to Pete. His brother, who has nothing to do with these type of attacks, and of course his wife. Because here's the thing that I found when I was married. There would be a lot of times I'd have work communication, but then my wife might say, hey, will you pick up something at the supermarket? Combining that is a stroke of genius.
Absolutely. So it's called the Department of Government Efficiency.
Exactly. So there's this, honey, will you pick up some stuff at the supermarket? Yes. And incidentally, in 2 hours, we've got these type of jets flying off of this carrier and those type of missiles that will be hitting this target. And I thought you should just know.
Well, he's got to be open and transparent with her, and she probably has some rules about that given past behavior.
Oh, well, that also could be part of it. I want to hear everything, including the top secret stuff. So Hegseth's wife, Jennifer, and to be fair, she's probably qualified to have this information because she was a former Fox News producer, was on the chat called, and this was apparently a chat that was set up prior to his confirmation, called Defense Team Huddle.
Let's go, team. Let's kill those civilians in Yemen on behalf of Israel.
Hegseth shared information, this from the New York Times, about the Yemen strikes in the Defense Team Huddle chat. At roughly the same time, he was putting the same details in the other Signal chat group that included senior U.S. officials and, inadvertently, The Atlantic magazine. This is people familiar with Hegseth's chat group. The Defense Team Huddle Signal chat until recently included about a dozen of Mr. Hegseth's top aides, including Joe Casper, Mr. Hegseth's chief of staff, and Mr. Parnell, who is the Pentagon chief spokesperson. The chat also included two senior advisors to Mr. Hegseth, Dan Caldwell and Darren Selnick, who were accused of leaking unauthorized information last week and were fired. Caldwell and Selnick were among three former top Pentagon officials who proclaimed their innocence in a public statement on Saturday in response to the leak inquiry that led to their dismissals. Now, it's unclear what they are accused of leaking, but my guess is that since that time of their firing, they may have leaked this. But here is Pete Hegseth explaining all of this away. It makes total sense when you hear him.
Let's hear him out.
They confirmed him just to collapse him. Pete Hegseth didn't stumble into scandal. He was marched into it, flanked by handlers who smiled through his confirmation, knowing full well he'd be torn apart from the inside out. The Pentagon is the place where knives don't wait. They're issued more than even the White House, more than the press, more than the Democrats. It's the suits with clearances and old grudges that run the kill switch protocol. They knew Hegseth was a liability. Fox News formed, overconfident, sloppy, and that's exactly why they greenlit him. He'd play the part, purge the woke generals, shake up brass, talk tough, carry Trump's water, and the moment he turned his back, they'd stick the blade. The Signal chats weren't leaks, they were spring-loaded traps. You don't accidentally add a journalist to a war council chat with real-time missile schedules unless someone wanted it out. And when Hegseth did what everyone knew he would, blasted sensitive strike plans into a side channel with his wife, his brother, and a personal lawyer who got himself recommissioned into the Navy just to be closer to power. They pounced. Suddenly, two of his closest aides, Dan Caldwell and Darren Selnick, were axed without explanation, not because they did anything wrong, but because they were too close to him when the knives came down. That's the tell. If this were about securing the building, Mike Waltz would have been the first one gone. He's the one who launched the first Signal chat, the one that got Goldberged, but he wasn't punished. Because Waltz is their guy. Because this was never about protecting ops, it was about ending Hegseth's influence and clearing the runway for the next phase of control, one branded as America first, but quietly tuned to Israeli frequencies. That's the point. The policy doesn't change, the face just gets cleaner. Swap the brawler for the bureaucrat, fire the populist and usher in the professional, someone who talks restraint on cable news while greenlighting escalation in briefing rooms. It's the Ben Shapiro faction, the Gadsad wing, the neo-MAGA cons who love Trump for the energy but serve a different master when it comes to war. And if Hegseth falls, make no mistake, they win. Waltz wins. The hawks who still think of Gaza and Tehran as the real priorities win, because in the end, Hegseth wasn't their guy. He was the bait. They gave him the badge, set the tripwire, waited for him to stumble, and now they get to walk in with cleaner hands and say, let us handle it from here. It was never about classified info. It was about leverage, and now they've got it.